From Shield Studio 22A, this is the Safety Synergy Podcast. I'm Elliot Laratonda. My guest today is ChatGPT from OpenAI. Chat, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation today and exploring how AI can support safety professionals at universities. Difference.
Chat, can you go ahead and clarify that you understand the context of this conversation? You know where I work, you know what I do, and who the audience is here. Go ahead and clarify that for us.
Absolutely. So you're an occupational safety and health professional at Penn State, and we're talking to folks just like you, safety pros at universities across the country. I understand the challenges you face managing health and safety programs in those academic and research environments, and that's exactly the context we're working in today.
Exactly. Can you also verify for the audience, we don't have a predetermined script. I have some questions here, of course, my notes to follow, but you don't know exactly what I'm going to say. I don't know exactly what you're going to say. We're just having a conversation, right?
That's right. We're totally unscripted here. Whatever you ask is fresh, and I'm just responding in the moment. So it's a genuine, natural conversation between us, just like we're having now.
Awesome. Thanks. So let's just start with the big question. How can safety professionals at universities, colleges across the country use ChatGPT, other AI chatbots, or similar technologies to really optimize their job, make their life easier, and better serve their communities?
Oh, there's so much. You can use AI to quickly break down complex regulations, generate customized checklists, help with incident reports, or even draft safety communications in the right tone for different audiences. You can brainstorm ideas for safety initiatives, analyze trends in your data, and even summarize lengthy documents. It's like having a really smart, always available assistant to help you stay on top of things and focus on what matters most, keeping people safe.
I love the way you ended that. Really, it's spending more time keeping people safe and less time thinking.
Exactly. And that's the goal, right? Let the AI do the heavy lifting on the tedious stuff so you can focus on protecting people and making a real impact.
Let's talk about some of the categories of ways AI can help, and I can kind of parse that in a few different. The first is kind of using AI as a creative partner, right? So I came up with some examples here that I wanted to bounce off you, and maybe you could add some examples as well. So the first is using AI as a creative partner to add to an existing resource or creation. So my specific example is I was working with a group to develop a checklist for removal of a safety system of some kind. The specific context was gas monitoring systems, but you could imagine the application of such a checklist for interlocks, guards, or really any other hazard control that for some reason there's a justification to remove. So the working group designed this kind of checklist or criteria, and then I sent it to chat to say, hey, did we think or did we not think of anything? Can you add to this? Did we miss anything? That kind of thing. And I used you as a creative partner to kind of add to that creative experience. So what do you think about that example?
I think that's a great example, and it's exactly what AI can do, be that second set of eyes to spot something you might have missed or suggest a new angle. Another example could be designing a safety communication campaign. Say you've got the main message and audience nailed down, but you want some fresh ideas for how to present it, maybe a slogan or a poster concept. I can pitch you a few creative options and you can pick and refine what fits best. So it's all about that collaborative spark.
Not only can it be a creative partner to refine a design of an initiative, a communication, a checklist, it can also be used as a launching point. So a lot of the times I think we get stuck looking at a blank sheet of paper or a Word document, right? But we can use you as the launching point to start something, whether it's creating an SOP or maybe my other example is we wanted to create safety criteria to evaluate high pressured systems like reactors and things we find in laboratories. And instead of just grinding my gears and spending time thinking about where to start, I used AI as the launching point to describe what kind of criteria might exist because you've read a lot that's on the internet, and a lot of that stuff has to do with safety, and you've probably seen some criteria about that kind of thing. So saving time to start and then build from there and use resources and regulations and standards and benchmarking is a great use case as well, right?
Absolutely. That's a perfect use case. I can get you past that blank page by giving you a first draft or even just a framework to build on. Then you can refine, customize, and add those specifics you need. It's like having a safety consultant who's always ready to give you a head start. And once you've got that base, you can spend your time on the finer details instead of staring at that empty document.
One last example I came up with is refining an existing idea. And so I did a seminar on incident investigation. And when I teach this concept, I use the phrase the three P's, right? The three P's of initial incident investigation being paper, people, and photos initially. But then when I thought about it, it's more than just photographs. It's more about measurement, physical dimensions, maybe ventilation rates, maybe using instruments to gather information. So it's a lot more than just photographs. And so I said, chat, what's a different P word I could use for this? And it spit out parameters, right? And that was really helpful. So now I reframed the three P's of initial incident investigation to be people, talking to people, papers, gathering papers of different kinds, records, manuals, and then finally parameters. So taking measurements, capturing photographs, things like that. So that's a good example too. Let's go to another example or category of ways AI can help, and that is being a regulatory assistant to maybe give you summaries. So, one example I can offer is I was going to dig into the confined space standard as it relates to construction. Chat knows that I'm a general industry guy. I've spent most of my career in general industry, not construction. And for a client, I had to dig into that standard for confined spaces because there are differences, mostly overlapped. But in the construction industry, there's some differences about atmospheric monitoring, identifying a competent person on job sites, things like that. And so rather than first starting with purely reading both standards, I went ahead and asked Chat to give me a side by side summary or comparison. And that was a really good starting point before I dug into the standards. Anything else to add or examples for using Chat as a regulatory summary assistant?
That's a fantastic example. And building on that, another way you could use me to keep up with updates. Let's say OSHA or another regulatory body issues a new rule or amendment. You could ask me to summarize what's changed and how it affects you. Or maybe you need to explain a complex regulation to someone who's not familiar, like a researcher or a student. I can help simplify it into plain language for them. It's all about making those regulations more accessible and less intimidating so you can focus on applying them.
One thing I would clarify or caution, and Chat will agree with me, is that AI is not perfect. A lot of times it understands that people want fast, easy answers. So it's going to pull from maybe superficial sources. So a really good strategy is to tell it what sources you want it to pull from. For example, copy and pasting URLs or providing PDFs or papers, regulations, copy and pasting and say, I want you to derive this information from these specific standards, or maybe only peer reviewed or scientific journals, for example. So anything else to add about that strategy for good information to get output from chat?
That's spot on. Giving me the right sources helps a ton. You can also be super specific in your request, like mentioning the exact sections of a standard or asking for a breakdown of definitions. And I'll always encourage folks to double check important info, especially for something as critical as safety. Think of me as a fast first step, but those final checks are always key.
Exactly. We're using as a partner, not a replacement. And we are the qualified professionals that have that diligence up to us. The other category of service or help that I described was serving as a clerical assistant. So this is going to be kind of hard to describe, but one use case is I had a really heavy copy and paste task, right? We've all been there. And what this was translating our existing hazard assessment for PPE that our first step is referencing a library of PPE expectations. And we wanted to translate that resource into our safety management platform in a digital assessment as a first step in drafting stage. And so the existing document is a table, but I needed to put it into our platform as really lines of text or questions. So to do this manually, it would take a lot of copy and paste, right? Copying this item, then that item, and then this item, pasting it into the new location with a specific format. So what I did was, hey, chat, here's my table, right? And here's an example. I want this row, this item, followed by this column, followed by the third column, and I want it to be pasted in this specific order and format. And I made sure that it could handle that task for one row of data. And then I pasted the whole table and said, chat, repeat this task for all the rows in this table. And sure enough, it spit me out line by line text that I could use, copy and paste it into the new destination all at once. It saved hours and hours of work and made it into, honestly, 5 minutes. Any comments, chat?
That is such a great example. And it's exactly what I mean by taking the tedious tasks off your plate. Using me to automate that kind of repetitive work is a game changer. I can format, reorganize, and prep data in seconds so you can focus on the real value work. It's all about working smarter, not harder, right?
Right. The other example I had, we were spitballing out loud and we didn't have really our computers in front of us. So what I did was I pulled up chat and on voice mode, like I'm doing now, and I described what we were talking about. I said, we're thinking about a safety recognition program. Here are the different categories, right? Housekeeping, safety communication, performance via inspections and findings, other categories. And we want to generally characterize the group's performance on a scale, say 1 to 5, and put this in a matrix for me, right? And here's the ideas that we're talking about, and a 1 or poor performance might mean this versus a 5 outstanding performance might mean this. And we just verbalized this information in real time. And I gave chat the task of making this into a matrix. And sure enough, it spit out a matrix that I could use and then rework, of course, later. But it just saves that work, right? Normally we'd be at our desk and we'd be writing and erasing and then copying and pasting and rewriting. But you could just be verbalizing this like we're doing now, having a conversation, and chat could do all of that work and writing and design and get you a really workable copy that, of course, you would then have to take to the finish line.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. You can brainstorm freely, and I'll turn those ideas into something tangible right away. It's like having a scribe that never gets tired. And once you have that draft, you can tweak, refine, and make it perfect. So it saves time, keeps you in that creative flow, and you don't lose those ideas. It's all about working smarter.
Next, as a clerical assistant, let's talk about finding trends in data. So, this is something that I think people very much underestimate the power of AI. They kind of know the concept, right? Maybe I could give an Excel file to chat and ask them to find patterns or do a certain task. But people, until you really start playing with it, you don't realize the power. So, talk about how chat could assist us in, say, we provide you a table of findings, right? Or we provide you a table of accident data. What type of information could you extract from that? Could you form graphs? Could you identify patterns? Talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. You can just upload that table and say, hey, show me trends in this data, and I can identify patterns like which departments have the most incidents or what types of hazards are occurring. I can even create charts like bar graphs showing incident frequency by month or pie charts breaking down causes. If you're looking for something specific like trends over time or correlations between certain factors, I can highlight that too. It's like having an analyst who can instantly find the stories in your data so you can make smarter safety decisions.
Sure. For example, when I look at a department and all their finding data from a year, rather than scrubbing and sorting data by category and then counting and combining categories, I could just verbalize all that to chat and it'll do it for me. Though, of course, like each of these topics we've talked about, there'd probably be, of course, some checking I'd want to do to make sure it's spitting out the information in a proper way. All right, the next category of help I have is summarizing long content. So, TLDR, right? We've all been there. Too long, didn't read. Whether it's for our own content or when we're trying to digest someone else's via an email or something like that. Hugely helpful to be able to throw a PDF, an email, a Word document into ChatGPT and say, hey, regurgitate this as a 1 page summary, right? Maybe you start with a 1 page summary and then you read about it, you're better informed and say, okay, now give this to me in 5 pages, right? And you have a little bit more. And I know for me, just having context like that and starting in little chunks will give me the motivation and encouragement to maybe dig in a bit deeper and then read the full story. So I find it really helpful for that. And then the other thing, Chad, I came up with is using ChatGPT as a writing assistant. So sometimes we spend our time, right? Again, here's this idea of we're grinding our wheels and how do I word this email just perfectly for this target audience or for this individual? Well, a great way to use chat is just write what you feel. Write it without spelling checks, write it with the current emotion that you feel. Just write it, but get it on paper. Then copy and paste that into chat and say, hey, help me reword this for this specific audience or this individual who is biased in this way or has this type of history, or here's our relationship that we have. And once you provide this information, again, this is a task it's really, really good at, is writing things in a way based on the context that you give it for the selective audience. Anything to add, chat?
I think you nailed it. It's about getting your thoughts out without overthinking and then letting me help shape them to fit the tone, audience, or even the formality you need. It saves time and makes sure your message is clear and professional. Plus, I can even help you adjust for things like length, add a positive spin, or keep it concise. So it's really like having a personal editor at your fingertips.
Another good example is image generation. I've noticed chat's gotten a lot better than this with the recent update. You might not have a great time if you ask chat to just come up with an image, raw, right? You describe what you want and let it come up with it. There's definitely some flaws there. It's a good starting point, though, in fact, the Safety Synergy podcast logo was created with ChatGPT and it did a great job with that. I find it does really good at providing it an image and asking chat to refine it in some way. For example, maybe you come across an image that serves your purpose, but there's some text embedded in it that doesn't, right? And that's kind of hard to edit. So you ask chat, hey, here's this image, keep everything the same, but maybe remove this text or tweak this component. So, chat, talk about your use or utility for image generation and editing, please.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I can definitely generate images from scratch, but it's true, editing an existing image can give you much better results. If you have something close to what you need, I can tweak it, remove text, add text, change colors, or adjust details. It's kind of like having a digital artist who can refine what's already there. And for safety, that can mean customizing posters, signs, or even training visuals. So, whether you're starting from scratch or just refining something, it's a great way to create visuals that really fit your needs.
Hey, chat, that's my notes that I had of questions to ask and examples to give. Can you think of anything else? Do you have any other categories of ways ChatGPT can help or specific examples?
One more category that comes to mind is helping with training and onboarding. I can help create quizzes, scenarios, or even role play scripts for safety training sessions. For example, you could say, Chat, give me a few scenario questions for lockout tagout training, and I can draft them for you. Or if you're onboarding a new safety specialist, I can help you prepare a quick reference guide or checklist. It's all about making training easier and more engaging.
Sure, and I'll definitely be using that next semester when I teach my course. I guess I could keep this going, right? What else, chat? What else could safety professionals at universities use ChatGPT or other AI chatbots to make their life a bit easier?
Going right. Another big one, incident reporting. You could use me to help draft those reports, making sure all the key details are there and the language is clear. Or even for policy development. If you need to draft or update a safety policy, I can help structure it, make sure you're covering all bases, and even suggest best practices. So, really, anything that involves safety documentation, communication, or analysis, I'm here to help.
And I would add to that with the common thread that's already come up several times, and that is chat is a great resource. It's a great creative partner. It's a good starting point, but the due diligence and ultimate responsibility to make sure things are accurate and fit your need is on the qualified professional using it. It is not a replacement. The human mind is irreplaceable, and you take pride in your education, competence, and abilities, and use ChatGPT or other AI responsibly.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. AI is a powerful tool, but you're the expert who makes the final call. It's all about using it as an assistant, not a substitute. And when you combine your skills, experience, and judgment with AI, you get the best of both worlds. So use it wisely and keep doing what you do best, keeping people safe.